Shalom and good day all, this is Tehillim29 back again for another anime review, and this time I'm covering Mob Psycho Season 3. And with this, I must admit, with the 12 episodes that we got in this series, there was quite a bit that happened, but there was also some things that occurred in the story which sort of like had a small link to the end of the last season and returning back in this season. So, jumping in regards to the first episodes, or the first few episodes of the series, the first is called Episode 1, Future Career Paths. Episode 2 is Yokai Hunter Amakusa Haruki. And Episode 3 is Getting Carried Away. Now, in these, for the synopsis for these episodes, a giant broccoli known as the Divine Tree grows in the middle of, Salt City, and as it starts to look upon the city, and whilst this is occurring, there are, slow cults emerging around this particular tree, or this divine tree that they call. But the thing is, this divine tree is actually connected to something that happened in season 2, or at the end of season 2, because with this particular tree, or this divine broccoli, of course, it had to do with something that Mob Psycho had in his pocket in the last season, but since then it's sort of like come into this season, and here it is, it's grown into this huge broccoli tree that stands in the middle of Salt City. So we get to see some of the small events that are happening with this, but this also has a bit of an undercurrent that probably goes for about 6 episodes. So the next is the Yokai Hunter, to which in this, Mob is very busy preparing for the cultural fair that's coming up in the weekends. In the meantime, Reagan Arataka gets a visit from a Yokai Hunter who has come to visit the city, and they also go to fight against some yokai demons of sorts. And whilst they're taking him on, we do get to see how this yokai hunter is actually like a legit real thing, where Reagan is himself, embarrassed that he doesn't have these skills. Moving into the next episode, we come into Getting Carried Away 100%, to which Mob is in a great mood because he got to talk with Sabomi for the first time in a while, as he's like had a bit of a schoolboy crush on her ever since he was younger and in the time that they have known each other. But there are some things that will come up later on in the series in regards to her character. So, as I mentioned, this undercurrent having to do with and whilst this is happening, he also gets invited to attend the Great Divine Tree rally of sorts, to see who will be the Divine Master, or who will be chosen to be like the Divine Master of the tree. And in this, he does get somewhat carried away. That's why it's sort of like Carried Away 100%. Moving into episodes 4, 5, and 6, we have the Divine Tree Part 1, the founder appears. Of course, Divine Tree Part 2, Peace, and of course, Divine Tree Part 3, Dimple is. And moving into the synopsis of all three, we have after Psycho Helmet's appearance, tree roots start emerging all around Salt City, basically sensing where there is any, unrest, to make it a little bit more peaceful of sorts, and to have them to bow down to who the head of the Divine Tree is, to which they call, Lord Helmet. in a way. The synopsis for episode 5 is Mob heads into Divine Tree only to have a face-off with Teru, to which Teru Hanazawa has become possessed by who is like heading the Divine Tree, but only to a point where Mob finds himself a little bit speechless as he discovers who the person actually is that is running the Divine Tree and gaining worship. And this is where it comes to part 3, where Dimple is sort of like the head of the Divine Tree, and we get a bit of an understanding that yes, even he too got carried away, which episode 3 also plays a part in episode 6 in regards to the message. And it becomes sort of like that time and place for those two to begin to know and understand each other more. That yes, Dimple did point out at the beginning that he was like seeking divine worship of sorts, because of the first time they met him, he was like running a smiley cult of sorts. And it's actually Teru Hanazawa who in the first episode who discovers that it's actually Dimple who's running it. So jumping into episodes 7 and 8, it's called Transmission Winter Break and Encountering the Paranormal. And this deals with one of the characters in regards to their like supernatural paranormal club that's running on the school campus, to which one of the characters decides to put their exams ahead of the club, but in turn they still turn up at something that they're invited to go. So for the synopsis for both, we have Kurato. Tomi has always dreamed about communicating with the universe through like particular spells and whatever means, and this is where members of the club get a group of people to come together, including Reagan, of course, who plays a part. We also have Mob Psycho turning up there, and during this particular event, we do get to see something interesting happen, especially in regards to part 2. The group somehow finally makes it to the summit at Mount Mudboat, where Takanaka had been taken. So basically one of the club members does actually end up having a bit of an encounter with the aliens. Even though the whole group get a bit of an encounter with the aliens, the rest return, but he ends up staying behind for a little while until he actually is seen later on in the series. So as we jump into episodes 9, 10, and 11, it's called Mob 1, Mob 2, and Mob 3. And this is where Mob actually learns a bit of a truth about one of his close friends that he's known since younger. And he, like, after the return of winter break is over, the synopsis is after the winter break is over, Mob is hit with shocking news that Tsubomi is actually going to be moving out of Salt City. And in regards, this sort of like leaves him like a last time opportunity as to reveal his feelings towards her. And moving into Rival, Mob tries to save a child that is about to be run over by a car and is also run over himself as people stand by. Moving as episode 9 starts off, yes, that's the time where he starts to make preparations to go and see Tsubomi before she actually leaves the city, and also to tell her true feelings. They do end up like setting a time to meet each other, and that is really well done. but also getting some information and advice from others of what to do in the situation, like seeing that this is sort of like his first time wanting to confess it to her. So we then move into some of the events that take place in Mob Part 2 in episode 10. Where not at the end of episode 1, moving into episode 2, we learned that Mob is actually being hit by a car, and now it's like his dark persona side, which is connected to his psychic abilities, that is now basically on autopilot, as he still continues to advance towards seeing Tsubomi. But as you can see in this particular event, is that he has lost total control of this particular side of him, and this is where we end up getting Hanazawa, like his first rival that is seen in the series, that has also come to sort of like try to bring Mob Psycho back, or Mob himself, or Shigeo back to himself, to the time to which he first met him, or at least try to bring him to some sense of understanding of what's happening around him and the lives that he's putting in danger. He, of course, gets defeated by Mob in this particular state, and not long after that, we do see towards the end of this that members of Claw also try to stop him. Also, former members of Claw try to stop him. And with these former members, they basically get their butt kicked as well due to Shigeo's psychic abilities. Until last but not least, we see Sho and his father make an appearance in the particular episode. And it's really nice to see a reunion of the father and son in this, seeing that at the beginning of it, it was actually the son who was wanting to stop the father, but in this time, it's actually the father and son working together to try to stop Mob, to bring him back to his senses. And we do get scenes as well in regards to Shigeo. We get to see him internally, of course, going up against his, I guess, psychic self, and he is wanting to sort of like try to bring peace to the situation, but it's just not working, not getting through. So this is where we move into part 3 of Mob, which is called Trauma. And this is where we have Ritsu, who comes in and makes a bit of an appearance. And this is really good too, because we get to see Ritsu go at 100% in his psychic abilities as he tries to prevent and stop his brother from what happened. He thinks it might have actually occurred because he might have been rejected, but I'll come to that later, that he went out of control. But sure enough, the events aren't as they appear. So in part 3, which is called Trauma, Mob continues to walk to the park to where Tsubomi is waiting, as he is destroying everything in sight. Shigeo's brother Ritsu comes into the scene. He tries to reach him not only through his psychic abilities, but also through talking to his brother as well, saying that things that only a brother would know about his older brother, and in an attempt to try to reach him and bring him back to the main point of sanity in the story. It does slow him down a bit, but it's not enough to actually have him stop. Next we have episode 12, which is called Confession, the Future. And in this, Mob continues down his path of destruction amongst all the chaos, or destruction and chaos. We finally get the appearance of Reagan with the help of Serizawa. And in this particular process, and we get to see Reagan turn up towards the end of episode 11 into 12. And whilst this is occurring, many have many that are connected to Mob have woken up that yes, it is actually Mob or Shigeo that's causing this destruction. And the big key person who plays a big part in the situation to break hold or to break its hold is actually Reigen himself. And we see what the psychic persona says to Shigeo himself as he sort of like can't trust this dude, and of course it's due to this event that we also get the return of Dimple, to which Dimple also comes in to also help Reigen help Reigen put a stop to Shigeo. And whilst this is occurring, Reigen speaks to Dimple, who has also given him some ability to sort of like help take on Shigeo at the time, only that after he asks him to leave his body, or after he leaves his body, to which we also have, and this is where the big thing happens, to where we do actually get Reigen give a bit of a confession to Shigeo himself. Yes, he admits that he lied from the beginning, and through that he did use him in ways that he really shouldn't have used him for his business opportunities. And it's that confession of honesty that helps to break through the event of Mob's psycho powers have wreaked havoc in the story. And it's not long after that the tornado that it's caused has actually caused quite a bit of damage. Now, I might just hold off as to what actually happens at the end. And there is a bit of an OVA of sorts that feels like it comes after this, but the OVA that's it's more linked to season 2 more so than season 1. And it's set around Reigen once again. Though I might have already watched through it and reviewed it on the channel. But overall, moving into the afterthoughts of this particular series, I must admit I've really enjoyed watching Shigeo Kageyama grow in this series, and I'm happy that the series is complete. I really look forward to finishing off the rest of the manga in relation to this series. I've also enjoyed the opening and the closing credit scenes, as well as the music in relation to them. So, moving into the next thing, and that is the rating of the characters. So, first rating of the first rating area is of the main characters, consisting of Shigeo. We also have Reigen. I guess they're the main two, also including his brother and also some of the psychics that have come to aid Reigen. With their performance, I must admit, I was really quite surprised as to what happened in the scenario. Even with Dimple pulling off the thing that he did in the story was absolutely amazing. But you do actually get to see him, in a way, humble himself as well. And realize, okay, we've had our wires crossed for a while. I think it's time for us to sort of like change things up. To which I give a rating for the main characters of about 8.5 out of 10. Next is the supporting characters, such as the club members, not just of the exercise club, but also of the club members connected to the paranormal club that Mob attends. For those, a an 8 out of 10. Next is the area of the animation, a big 8.5 out of 10. Next thing is the soundtrack, an 8.5 out of 10. And last but not least, this story, to which I give an 8.5 out of 10. Until then, let's keep it colourful and have yourself an awesome day.